Okay, so we're going to do the glasses. Here's a quick demo that I did. I'm going to start this from scratch, but this is where we want to be. We're going to end up with, this is a front and two sides and lenses. And that's really all we need to do with this. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project here. So let's get a new one here. Okay, so here's new. So this is what you'll see. A couple things can be confusing. That you want to have your origin will help you because it defaults off on my computer. And then the other thing is when I'm in here on my view shade, I like to do shaded with edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is we already drew our glasses. So I'm going to go insert canvas and I'm going to go find the frame that I drew, right? So I drew the front of this frame. There it is. I put a measurement on here because that'll help me. So I'll say open. And then it wants to know where am I going to bring it? It's the face. I want to make sure it's in the front view. So I just want to select this orange origin, and there it is. And that's fine. And then I say, okay, right? So then what I want to do is I want to scale this. And so what happens is it comes in the canvas, and all I want to do is right click on it and hit calibrate. And so I've already put this measurement in that. So when we drew this, I said 2.5 by 1.5. I'll go with the larger one. And I'll just click on one side, click on the other where it's 2.5, and just type in 2.5, right? So then I'll scroll out, I'll zoom out, or I can just hit the front view. That should do it also. So now what I want to do is before I start doing any modeling, I want to move this. So it's at kind of at the 0, 0. So a couple ways to do it. I find if I go to the very bottom, it kind of records what I'm doing, and I right click and I say edit feature. That's the easiest way for me to move this thing around, right? And so I'm gonna kind of put the bottom and the left on this green and the red, which represents the Y and the X. All right, so it doesn't really matter other than when I mirror it, it helps if it's really on there pretty well centered. I'll say, okay. So, all I need to do now is I'm gonna go ahead and model this. And so I go over here to the create sketch. It wants to know, again, the plane that I'm working on. So this is the front. So I select that origin. And then I can just go ahead and start modeling it. So I find I like, you can play around when you click on the arrow. You can do circles, rectangles. For something like this, I think that you can avoid all the splines. If you can keep it as one. So I want to make sure I'm on this, there's a green line here that represents my vertical or my y-axis. I just click it, and then it's okay to click as many times as you want. I was kind of telling you guys less is more, but honestly I think it's fine to just click around here. And I'm just going around my drawing, and so I've got this sharp angle here. The way that I have to do this when it comes to a vertical line here, I just push enter, and then I'll just draw a line coming straight down. Jake may tell you there's a better way, but it just seems to be the easiest. And then I'll go back to the that spline feature, and I can zoom in, and I just want to put it at every spline that I'm doing. Actually, every single one of these represents a radius. So I'll just click here, I'll go around. And so far so good. And when it gets a little tighter here, this is where I might add some extra little splines here. I can go back and clean it up.
Yeah, that's a good point to add. Of course, when you're using the spline tool, you don't have to stress a ton about getting it right the first time. You can always go back and edit these.
Okay, so I'll push enter. And so now I want to close it up. Is that right, Jake? It's probably best to close it up.
Yep.
I'm going to mirror it, but I'll just go ahead and close this up. All right, so one thing I noticed just right off the bat, it's kind of going up here, and I know that I want this to be more, I don't want to see it going up like that. So that's just one of the splines I want to take care of right off the bat. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm pretty happy with this. Jake, is there a way to add a spline in here if I wanted to between these 2 points?
I believe you might be able to just add if you go to create and point and add one on that line, but I'm not sure it's going to give you the actual control point.
We discovered that also. And then push enter.
So I don't think it's going to give you any control minus being able to click and drag, though, like you don't get those green.
Okay, so it didn't really do me any good.
Nope.
Okay, well, so there it is. Again, I can just grab these little spline, the end of the spline, and if I want to, but I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'll say finish sketch, and so there it is, the sketch. I could actually with that sketch I'm going to go ahead and start another one. So let's so with a sketch here, I could say, if I wanted to, I could label this frame or something. So you can always do that if you get too confused. So now I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do the inside. So I'll do the exact same process. I'm going to start here. Wants to know where I'm, let's see. So I'm good here. And I'm just going to go around. Now, I think you may remember I've done this before and I found my frames were too thick. So I'm going to really make it on the outer of my sketch. And I always find this is the best, the worst place to design is here. The best place to design it is on paper because it's very easy to lose sense of my proportions and scale. All right, and there it is, and I'll push enter. And, that actually looks pretty good. So I'll say finish sketch. Okay, and so in my, oh, you know what I did, Jake? I think I did this all in one. I didn't finish it. Will that be a problem when I extrude it? Let's see.
No, you should be able to.
Okay, so
that
there it is. I've got my outer frame and my lens here. So I'm going to extrude the outer frame. So I'm going to select it, the extrude, and I'm going to the profiles I want to hit here. All right. And I'll say new body. I want to do, let's see. And I'll say 0.125, all right, which is about 1/8 of an inch. All right, and then Jake, because I did that, can I go ahead and as one, can I just grab this and extrude this? Let's see.
So what I would do here is I would turn your frame sketch back on. That will allow you to grab the closed center section for your lens.
So I don't need to subtract it.
Correct. So yep, toggle that back on, and now you can go and extrude it.
Yeah, so I can just, so let's go extrude. I turned everything off with this. And yeah, and so now I'll type in, I'm going to make it a little smaller, 0.120, which is a little less. Cool. So there's my two bodies. I can turn the sketch off. You'll see there's bodies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label these just to keep myself sane. I'll say frame, and then I'll say, I'm just double clicking and I'll say lens. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm going to mirror these. So what I do to mirror these is I go to create and I say mirror. All right. And then, select the objects, right? So I'll select, I can do it here, or I can actually manually just select it here. And then it wants to know the mirror plane. And that's that orange canvas there in the center. And then I say, oh, and I'm going to do a new body. And I'll say, okay. So there it is. Now what I'm going to do before I do the side is, let me turn my canvas off. I'm going to just, and again, I could go back in and play with it if I didn't like this feature. You can always go back and still modify it. Isn't that right, Jake? If I wanted to, can I edit this?
Yeah, the cool thing about Fusion is you can always turn back the time.
So I would go, let's just say I wanted to edit it. I would go to this point, edit sketch, and I actually can edit it at this point, and it'll show up in the I'm not going to go crazy with it, but it'll actually show up in all the work that I'm doing here. So let's just say I wanted this to be a little higher here. So that way it kind of comes down to a little bit. Let's say I like that. It's a little too much still, but right. Like I said, this is not always the best place to be designing, but let's just say I'm happy with that. And I do something like that. Okay, let's just say finish sketch. So it'll automatically update that for me, which is a really nice feature, right? So even though we extruded all that, if I go in and I edit that first spline that I made, edit sketch, it'll go back and just do it for you. So you don't have to start all over. So if you're like, oh, I screwed that up, doesn't look right. It's what they call, is it parametric? What's that called, Jake? Parabolic?
Parametric is correct.
Yeah, parametric, right? That's what that feature is called. Unlike AutoCAD where you do it, it's in the oven. Okay, so now I'm good. I've got this, I've got my, turn my sketch off. I've got my objects here. All right, finish sketch. So I've got my bodies here, right? So now what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and fillet these. So I'll go to modify and I'll say fillet, and I'm just going to select the edges. You know, I think I did this maybe last time before I mirrored it, which might have been a better way to do it, but I'll just go ahead and do it here. So I'm just selecting the edges. There we go. And I'm going to type in 0.0125. You've got to play around with this a little bit, maybe a little more than that, 0.25. All right, that works. Okay. And I'll say, okay. You might want to, you could also do the other side at the same time. So again, modify, chamfer is a 90, like just a flat plane, but we're going to radius it. So again, I'll do the exact same thing. I'm just going to select, you know what, on this one, I think I'm going to keep this one flat. So I'll go, again, modify, fillet. I'm going to leave that flat area because that's where my frame is going to butt up against. So I actually want to keep that flat. All right. So I'll say, okay, point, let's try. You know, you can see what it's doing. So if you want to get a perfectly fluid edge, you know, you could just keep pushing it until it'll give you an error message if it won't do it. So let's say 0.75. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's pretty good. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm happy with that. You know, I always want to inspect it in 3D. I'm going to go ahead and put my the side view in here. So I'll do the exact same process. I'll go insert canvas, and I'm getting it from my computer. And so I'm going to do the side. Now I already know that this has some inherent problems with it. So the face I'm going to put here. This is essentially my XY. This would be kind of like the Z, the third axis here. And I'll say, okay. Let's see, why didn't that go on? Let's try it one more time. Insert canvas on my computer.
So it's not going to work right now because your canvases in like the little browser tree, the visibility is toggled off. So right now you don't have to exit out of this. You can go over to the canvases on the left, and let me see if I can get my annotation.
Oh, I see.
Yep, right there. So you just have to toggle that eye on, and you're good.
Okay, it was turned off. Okay, so I turned it off. So it was there. Okay, so oh, try that again. Did I do it wrong? Oh, I turned it off. Okay, so it's there. So now what I want to do again is I want to dimension it. Thank you, Jake. I'm going to go to right, calibrate, and I'm just going to, you know, it might be best just to go to where my dimensions are, and I'm going to say 5. So that's 5 inches. And so I'm going to just scroll out. And again, I find the easiest way, you can right click on here and move, or you can go to the bottom and do it. But so what I do is I go down to the bottom, right click, and I say edit feature, and then I can move this thing. All right, so I'm going to move this. So it's essentially at the top of my my frame here, which is right there. I think that's where it is. Okay, so all right, let's move it up. It's going to be right about there. Okay. All right, so there it is. I'll say okay. And so then I'm going to do the same process that I did before. I'm going to just go to the create sketch on this plane, and I'm going to follow the exact same process I did before. I'll click right here. You should have a little gap. You know, I don't want to have mine go up like that. So here we go. All right, I can already see I want to fix this a little bit. All right, push enter, and that's going to be a flat right here, a flat line. So I'll just click one, click the other, push enter. I got to clean this up a little bit because it looks a little goofy. I want it to be a little bit flatter, so maybe move it up a little bit. That feels really kind of goofy to go down like that. Okay, that looks better. And I'm happy with my frames. All right, I could obviously spend a lot more time, and I say finish sketch. Okay, and then Jake, it disappeared. Is it behind it? Where did it go? I'll turn that on. Okay, thank you, Jake. You rock. Okay, so Leanna, you just hang on while I finish this up. Okay, so thanks, Jake. So now I've got my side of my frame here. It looks good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude that. So I go up here, extrude, select the frame. I'm going to go 0.125, which is like 1/8 of an inch. I'm very happy with that. It's a new body. I'll say okay. And so now what I want to do again is I'm going to fillet those. I'm going to say fillet. And I'm going to select the edges. I could do them both at the same time. I know that I don't want to do this flat one right here because that's a hinge. So I'll do one side. I think I can do the other. And let's type in 0.0. If it's wrong, it'll just say error, right? So it's giving me an error message. So, you know, what's happening is if the radius is just too big, it'll just fold over each other. So you can kind of just play with it until it's like almost a perfect radius. I'm happy with that. I'll say okay. So it looks good. I'll turn my sketch off so I'm not confused. My canvas off. There it is. And so now I just want to move it and then mirror it. So I'll go to the top view and I'm going to right click on this guy right. Let's see, where is this guy? Right here. So I've got this new body. So this is going to be my side. I'll just label it. And I will right click and say move. Actually, the best way to do it is down here. So edit sketch. Is that right, Jake? What's the best way to move this from the top view? Just grab it and right click and move it?
So I would go, yeah, I would go into my move command, yep, and then for your selection,
yeah.
I find for anybody, it's always the easiest just to grab it from your browser over here on the left side.
Okay, so I've got a little area there. I want to maintain that gap here, and you always obviously want to just make sure it's inspect it before you go crazy with this. So that looks good. I'll say okay, and now I'm just going to mirror it. So to mirror it again, I go to create. I go down to mirror, select the object, right? Select the mirror plane, which is, scroll just a little bit around. It's the same one we used before. It's that Z. So mirror plane select, boom, and there it is. Okay, so that's essentially how we model it. And then I've got 4 minutes before our guest speaker. So what I'm going to do then is I'm happy with it. I'm going to go to design. I'm going to go to, I want to do the materials. So if I go into render, it'll bring up all these materials and appearances. So I obviously want the lenses to be clear, right? So let's go to appearance, and it'll bring up things like glass. Sometimes you have to load them, but I think we're good here. So let's just see what it has for glass. And let's do, it's kind of fun to put different colors in. All you do is drop it in there, right? So I'm doing the blue, and then let's go ahead and do the frame, and I'm going to do like a wood frame. So come down, you know, you can choose anything you want. There's plastic, which is probably more appropriate. There's also 3D wood, like solid, but I think you've got to download it. If you see that arrow here, it means that it has to download from the cloud first. So if you don't have the patience for that, like I'm doing a demo here, I'll just go ahead and take the wood, and I'll go ahead and grab maybe this walnut and just see what it looks like. And so I'm not seeing it. It might be really, yeah, it's really dark. So sometimes you've got to render it first before you really get a sense of what it looks like. And so then what you want to do, last thing we want to do here is I'm going to put it into a little environment. So I click on scene setting, and you want to make sure that you say background, you change it to environment. because otherwise it'll just it'll just have whatever default. So you can do studios, photo booth to play around with it. I'm going to, just because these are sunglasses, I'm going to put it on this dry lake bed. And Jake, do I just need to drop it in there? There it is. Okay. And I can go like so. Now, Jake, why? I guess it's just because my lenses are kind of funky here. I don't like the color of the material. So, this might be a place to play around with materials in here. And then you can render it. The lenses are kind of dark for what I'm trying to do here. So I could go into the glass and I could try other. You can spend a lot of time. You actually have a lot, maybe I'm doing these mirror. And then what you want to do is a quick rendering. And so to render it, what you want to do, it's kind of the international sign of rendering is this teapot here. So you go to render. You should obviously save it. Fortunately, this is in the cloud, but even if your computer goes, you still want to save it. So I'm calling this eyewear. I get really confused with 1.0, 2.0. Sometimes it's best just to use the date, I find. But if you're using multiple 21, A, if you're doing a lot of render, a lot of these. So I'll go ahead and say save. This actually is really important. I didn't save it where I should. The cool thing about this on the side is if you don't see that, if you click this 9 boxes here, you'll see your projects. And so it kind of goes outside your folders. You create new folders. So for example, if I go to my eyewear folder, I've got, what I've been doing the last 2 weeks. So I'd come in here and I could save this into here. I didn't save it into there. I'm not sure where it's saved to. So believe it or not, it's actually really important. Yeah, it's in there. I don't see it for some reason. I'll say save. Okay, so there it is. And then you want to do a rendering. And so I find, Jake, so you as a student get certain credits. It's like you can pay money as companies, but we're just going to go local render. That's on your computer. I would hold off on doing like the final. There's a lot of features here, like standard. And then you'll see, I'll go ahead and just, you could spend hours. I'm not really thrilled because I've got this weird thing in the back. I can see I got some weird wood there, but I'll go ahead and just test it out and see what it looks like. It should give you an update how long the rendering. I advise you kind of start with doing lots of little renderings and then do kind of when you're all done, do a final rendering. Now, Jake, where did my rendering go? Let's see here, rendering. Did I not save it, Jake? Rendering, let's just do a draft one, custom PNG. You have a lot of control. There it is right there. So it was just thinking about it, double click it, and there's my rendering. All right, that's actually a mirror. That's why it's kind of that funky. Okay, so I could do a much better job, and maybe what we'll do next time around is spend more time. But because I can't live with myself if see it like this, let's just add, let's try that walnut again, a little darker. And then I do want to probably play around with my lenses one more time, get something a little bit more transparent. I'd go with the glass here. Let's try this glass again. Maybe a little dark. Jake, I don't know why that glass is so dark. So as I said, you could spend an eternity in here. Glass, maybe we'll try the glass window or the green. Let's try the green and see if that works. All right. And then, you can spend a lot of time in it. It's actually really worth your time. So right now I'm aware that I see the frame in the back, these kind of things, but if I want to show the side of the frame, there's things to think about, right? So when you render it, so let's just say I'm happy with that. I can zoom in, zoom out. Let's do one last rendering, and then we're going to call it quits here, local render, and say render. It'll take a moment. I should probably save it and say okay. And then, so the great thing is, if you go on your own computer or another computer, it's always going to be there. You don't need a flash drive. You just use your account and you're good to go. So Jake, let me ask you, any thoughts, Jake, before we close out of here on the little demo I gave? Any suggestions to the students?
No, I mean, the process is pretty straightforward. Just, of course, if you guys need like one-on-one help, you can just reach out on the Discord.
Okay, so thank you, Jake. So everybody, this is, you know, your project. I know I went really quickly, but we're taking the design, the sketch, and we're, you know, we went from sketch, and that sketch is always there. So we had that sketch in the front. I could turn all these off, turn our sketch back on the canvas, and go through that process. Okay, so very good, everybody. Thank you, and I'm gonna save this, and then you guys are gonna be able to work on it off the recording. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop this share. And let me stop the recording. Sorry.